So thank you everyone for joining us today. And I'm so delighted to welcome everyone to our sixth Swarovski Foundation in Conversation Talk. Aligned with the Swarovski Foundation principles and with the contribution of experts from areas such as NGOs, the public and private sectors, and the creative industries, each section examines, discusses, and raises awareness around these themes. The Swarovski Foundation has also recently launched a new global grant program, Creatives of the Future, designed with advisor the United Nations Office for Partnerships to identify and accelerate the new generation of creative leaders in sustainable development. The program is open to all creatives aged 18 to 25 and aims to empower the next generation of creative talent to unlock innovation, new approaches to our global sustainability challenges, and drive progress towards the UN Sustainable Development Goals. After a very successful call for applications, which resulted in over 400 submissions from 72 different countries, the program is now supporting a creative cohort of 9 participants from 9 different countries. Their work spans across sustainable fashion, product design, biotechnologies, architecture, engineering, and visual arts. Their commitment to driving progress towards the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, the blueprint for a better world set up by the United Nations in 2015, also set them apart. In addition to the grant, the participants will receive tailored educational opportunities, industry network access, and mentorship provided by the Swarovski Foundation and the program's advocates. On this note, I'm delighted to welcome guests Annemarie Hou, Executive Director of the United Nations Office of Partnerships, or advisor for the program, and Cyrill Gutsch, founder of Parley of the Oceans and Creatives of Our Future advocate. Thank you so much, both of you, for being here and for your guidance in this program. And Cyrill, thank you so much for having agreed to be a partner to those 9 students. Now, Annemarie is the acting executive director of the United Nations Office for Partnerships. She was appointed in April 2020. She's also the senior communications advisor in the executive office of the Secretary General. Annemarie served as chief of staff and director of the executive office of UNAIDS, the United Nations Program on HIV and AIDS, and previously she oversaw the global advocacy and communications portfolio. Annemarie also served as the first global health communications manager at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and as a family spokesperson and as a member of its alumni advisory board. We're truly honored to welcome you, Annemarie. And I also have the pleasure of inviting Cyrill, taking part in this conversation today. Cyrill is an award-winning designer and brand and product developer. In 1998, he created a method called cross intelligence, which brings a culture of collaboration to major organizations. In 2012, he founded Parley for Oceans as a collaboration network for creators, thinkers, and leaders to create awareness for the beauty and fragility of the oceans and to develop and implement strategies that can end their destruction. In 2018, Parley was named Environmental Organization of the Year by EarthX, and Cyrill was honored as a Special Recognition Award nominee and winner for innovation by the British Fashion Council. Welcome, Cyrill. It's a great pleasure to have you here and also to be able to count on you for the creators of our future. Willkommen. So as you all know, Swarovski Foundation's mission is to foster creativity for the benefit of society and the environment. And we strongly believe creatives are the problem solvers and the critical thinkers that will lead solutions to sustainability challenges in this pivotal era. Creativity, innovation, and collaboration can contribute to the creation of hybrid and dynamic economy and cultural exchanges, nurture innovation, and lead to results that contribute to the overall well-being of communities. So today with Annemarie and Cyrill, we'd love to explore what it means to foster partnerships and creative talent to accelerate sustainable solutions to all of the world's biggest challenges and how the creative industries can be a key in achieving this. With your contribution, we'd also like to understand how programs such as Creatives of Our Future can contribute to the development of a new generation of thinkers that proactively promote social inclusion, cultural diversity, and environmental sustainability. So why don't we start with Annemarie? I've given your amazing background, but perhaps you would like to also tell us a little bit more what exactly you're working on um, in the UN, what it means to embrace those 17 goals. And another topic I would love to touch upon later with you both is how should we and do we embrace the next decade, which again has been declared the decade of action by the UN last year, and the clock is ticking. So how can we all make the best contribution? So Annemarie,
Thank
great
you
to
so
have
much.
you.
Thank you so much. First, let me say, wow, Cyrill, so amazing. I'm excited also to be listening and hearing about what you're doing. And thank you so much, Nadja, for bringing us together. So my job today is really to make the case for each of you to take on the 17 Sustainable Development Goals and to really make them your own. I'd love to see all of these young creatives flip the orthodoxies, turn them upside down. For example, like many of you, I've done a tiny bit of online shopping in the past 15 months. So I noticed that when you're in a store, there is a section or a special label that's put on a dress or a chair that it is sustainably made. I'd like to flip that orthodoxy. I'd like to have the majority of all the products that we see to be sustainably made. And then we call out that dress and the chair that are not sustainable. So that's the kind of thinking I think all of you are going to be able to bring. I'm excited by the geniuses like Cyrill. He's making it possible for brands to really mainstream sustainable products. Or people who are out there creating an app that's going to tell me if the chocolate bar I want to buy is going to be sustainable. So right now, there are 1.8 billion young people between the ages of 10 and 24. It is the largest generation of young people in history. You have the power to demand, expect, and create better. And whatever goal of any of these 17 amazing sustainable development goals gets you in the door, whether it's water, gender equality, or responsible consumption, I hope you're going to run with it. And I'm also here to answer questions around what you can find behind those doors. So if it's door number 8, which is decent work, by the way, we can talk about it. And I'm also here to kind of get inputs, what you think we as the United Nations could be doing better in terms of helping people understand and find a way to connect with these goals. They're really not the UN goals, they're the world's goals. And anything that we can do to kind of foster that partnership and the commitment and to keep the promise of the goals, that's what I'm hoping to do today. So thank you so much again, Nadja.
That's great. Fantastic. Thank you so much for opening that platform, letting the listeners also ask all those questions. Super. So maybe, Cyrill, we should just jump right into you and hear more about your worlds of the oceans and the water and how you came about.
Yeah, thank you, Nadja, and great, Annemarie, to be with you too here now in this beautiful forum. 9 years ago yesterday, Parley came to me really, or I fell into the sea, and it happened by chance. I was ready for it though. I was ready to leave behind my life as a gun for hire for the industry, right? Working as a designer, as a strategist, as an innovator for major corporations for a long time. 9 years ago, I met this guy, Captain Powotznov Sea Shepherd. He was arrested in Germany, and I was actually on an art exhibition in Basel at Parley Foundation, and a mutual friend said to me, "Hey, I'm just coming from Frankfurt, and I learned that you're German. Probably you can help." And I was like, "Okay, what is it?" And she outlined what happened. Paul was arrested at the airport, and he was in custody in Frankfurt on his way pretty much to be extradited to Japan. And there was something that touched me, because I knew that as a designer, you are ignorant often to these topics. I was, to be very honest, nearly cynical. For most of my life until then, I was like, I knew that we would eat up the planet. I knew how destructive we are and how selfish. But I also knew that that's how we are, humans, right? I mean, that's what we do. We just eat up. And I I saw there was no alternative than we're going to destroy the planet, right? It was like, I accepted that fact. And I even started a lot of design projects playing with that idea that we would leave behind that cloud of trash, of data trash. And it was a very dystopian outlook. But there was something in me where, I'm still German. I grew up with all these ideas of like, take care of the environment, and there's a yellow bin for the recyclables, and it's ingrained in us. And there was this moment suddenly where I woke up in the night then at 5 a.m. and I felt, listen, I have to go to Frankfurt. So I went to the airport and took the first flight and texted my friend, and I took her actually all day to arrange that meeting. And then I was sitting there with Captain Paul Watson, and I asked him, I said, listen, Paul, when are the oceans dying? And he was like, oh, that's 2048. And I'm like, that's 36 years out. What can I do? What can I contribute? And I went to the bathroom, Googled, and actually there was all the scientific evidence that we are destroying our oceans. And that will be the legacy of our generation, leaving behind a planet with a dead sea. And I went back into the meeting and I listened to him, and I felt, you know what, it's great. And I adore every environmentalist, but it's probably not the way how you can fix this. We need to be in the room. We need to innovate. We need to create better ideas, because all these environmental issues we're facing, they're based on economic models that are outdated. They're destructive. They're running an old idea of exploitation, to be honest. And it was an idea, right? But it's an old idea. And all these materials like that cause plastic pollution, climate change, overfishing, even like the whole idea of what I eat and how I eat it and when, these are old ideas. And that brings me to the creative community. And I felt like we creators, we have to own the environmental movement in a total different way, not with our money, but with our inspiration, encouragement, and by actually finding solutions and coming up with new ideas and equipping also economy with new ideas, with new technologies, and helping to start a new economy, one that is based on collaboration really, and a new generation of materials, a new generation of eco-innovation, really.
Yeah, that's amazing. And how, can I just ask you, why was poor Captain Paul Watson detained? What did he do wrong? Did he expose the wrong information, the right information?
Yeah, 10 years before, he was actually filming for a documentary called Shark Water, in Costa Rica waters, and he was arrested for arresting an illegal fisher. And he was doing that in sync with the authorities, but at some point they had better contacts, and he got arrested for intimidating illegal fishers. And that was like dormant. They went to court, it was solved, it went dormant for 10 years. But on his way to Cannes, where he was about to attend a conference, he was arrested on a stopover in Frankfurt, because I think there was a red notice or a blue notice first from the Interpol. The Japanese had him on an observation list.
No.
They took him down, yeah. And the Germans, they like just put him in prison, Yeah, that was him. And
that's outrageous. Well, I have to say that was an amazing film.
Yeah,
and a very sad ending.
Very powerful.
But and then it was very wonderful. It was wonderful to see you and him again in the Seaspiracy. Hearing your voices, But it would be amazing then to hear a little bit. So how did you collaborate with him, and what kind of ideas did you get from him, that really manifested themselves in either your strategies or products?
I think the first thing that happened to me was when I spoke to him in this little law firm back then, 9 years ago, that I left a mindset that I had until then. And that was that I have to fix problems myself. I have to be responsible. I have to bring them to the end. I'm responsible for the outcome. And as a designer, that's what you do, right? You take on a job, you bring it to the end, and that's your job. That's your role. And that has a lot of ego involved, but you also need that. And when I asked him, I said, listen, this is an overwhelming cause. I mean, what keeps you running? He was like, this is not really about me solving this. It's about me doing the best I can. And I'm just doing every day the best I can. And I felt that very, honestly, that was for me extremely relaxing. I felt like suddenly I could be part of a movement. I could be part of a greater bigger goal, and I'm going to do the best I can. But I'm not, I would say, beating myself up every day of being the best in my territory. And it's not anymore about my ego, really. It's not anymore about owning this one idea, having this one look. I was ready to give that up, and that was pretty much for me an opening into a total new way of living. And then the second was that he needed help at this moment because people like painted him as a villain. And I saw this as a media problem. This is a communication issue. That's something I'm good at, right? And I also saw that this is all about collaboration and the environmental movement. All of them back then, when I saw them, they were like ego warriors. And then you have the opponents of them that were the brands. So it was not really a coalition. And I felt like if we are building interfaces and get people to collaborate, really, that would be moving things very much forward. That was what I learned back then with Paul, was also to build my own forum. Parley was at the beginning of our talks, and I invited lots of other experts, and I saw, you know what, people only know segments. So how can I help them to complete their picture and get the knowledge in the moment they need it, right? Like instant access to something you need in that moment, instead of like, oh, I have to read every book and I have to become this super expert. It's not possible for a lot of people that are in powerful positions. They can't become a scientist suddenly. They have to make calls, and they have to have reliable sources, and knowledge has to be turned into an action button, really. And all that happened the first year, and we campaigned with him, and we got lots of powerful people to support him. He got back to America, and all that was important. But in this whole process, I met so many others. So we formed a global network, really. And interesting enough, it was not only I would say, very controversial activists like him, and also we had a lot of conversations about that too, because I saw more collaboration as a future for him. But also suddenly big corporations, governments, intergovernment organizations. The UN actually was one of the first places we hosted things, and the convening power is extraordinary, visions and the motivation for people to live and spend their whole life working for these organizations. There's a lot of very good intention, and I feel it's now really about a game plan, right? Like, how can we align the forces? How can we manage change as a project and not as a cause?
That's amazing. Well, we hit the nail so well in so many fronts. And I mean, obviously, since Annemarie said, how was the collaboration with the UN, and how did you feel that amplified your voice and got the message out and got people's attention? And it would just be
I think that the UN stand for something for a beautiful idea. I mean, it's different when you're then in the UN building and if you're a lot of time spending. It's a different scenario if you're really entangled or embedded in it. So I'm in a fortunate situation that I could keep that romanticized and glorified picture. Even if here and then it would like be a bit brittle, I kept that idea of the UN being a declaration of peace, an intention, really, a mutual intention to form a better future. And I see that the majority of the people I met there, they arrived at the UN based on that intention. But of course, then comes an array of complications and bureaucracy, and it's not easy to get all these different governments under one roof. It's complicated, right? And me coming from a more, I would say, provocative angle of like advertising, design, creativity, I didn't really fit in so well. I think that I was an alien, honestly, and it took everybody a moment to kind of find the right touch points. But it was a clash of cultures. I mean, we kind of invited 1,500 people from the creative industry to come into the General Assembly and attend our first conference there. Then it was a very unusual picture, I feel, and mixed with minister level people and head of states, and it became this motley crew.
But the same intention.
Yeah, the same intention, and honestly, years later, I think people appreciated it, and they felt like, you know what, that's exactly what we should do, I felt encouraged, and at the beginning, it helped me a lot to understand how the world really works, and I had no clue that I would ever work with governments. I didn't even know where to start, you know? Where do you start?
Well, that's a good thing. You just started, and it doesn't just take the government or other organizations. You know, you're such a good example of the individual intention and individual voice. And look, the momentum you've gathered around you and the people you've gathered around you. And it's a real great example of a total paradigm shift. You know, I mean, you grew up in Germany, I grew up in Austria, and you could only speak if you raised your hand and the teacher called on you.
You know what?
If that would be today,
100%,
Nadja. Sitting there in silence, you know, because nobody's going to call on you.
But you know what? New York took that away from me. And it took a moment. New York took that away because I think if I would have started Parley for the Oceans in Germany, I don't think we would have been successful. Because it's exactly that. You're like, your title, you're invited, you're asked to talk, don't raise your voice, don't be too intense, don't show your emotions, you know, don't have too big of an idea that might be ambitious. Yeah, you know how it is.
That's right. You know, and, you know, many good things come in very many different packages. And I think, you know, that's another thing we've just felt so much after this COVID era, you know, I think, or the beginning of this COVID situation, I think people are so much more heartfelt. It's been such an amazing wake up. And, you know, it's the heart and the spirit and the soul that's driving people.
More intuitive. I agree with you. It's more intuitive because we're now all sitting in our living rooms and we can't anymore pretend that we are so official. The facade is like fading away. And that's probably the win. While we had a lot of loss, and I also had a lot of loss, but I think the win is that we probably suddenly understand that we're humans, even if we're in a professional capacity in some moments, we're still humans. And I think that the old idea was always, oh, this is business, don't take it personal. I think this is business, we should take it personal. You know, this is personal. You know?
Absolutely. I never quite understood that fine line between the business and the personal life. We are personal individuals that are extending ourselves into a business with purpose, hopefully, or purposefully extending ourselves into the business. And I truly believe that your driver is a lot stronger if your heart and soul are involved.
Yeah, and an organization, a company that you form is it's an expansion of your range and your culture. It's actually an approach to form a culture or to bring visions to life and so on. It's just it's nothing else than an entity you create that is an instrument or a tool. So why would it be something that is? I mean, that's easy to say if you are, and that's in your situation different than with a monster organization that is led by people that got hired, but they're not relating to it, right? I think that the old idea of economy, there was somebody who started a business. There was a family, there was a founder, and the founders, they were often very awkward people, right? I mean, they just created some weird things, and suddenly they had the biggest soda company in the world or the biggest automotive company. I think this entrepreneurial spirit of the encouragement also to trust your idea and to build an economy around it and to think it through and challenge what is out there, challenge the status quo. I think that has gotten a little lost because we feel overwhelmed by all the presentations that these existing brands expose us to, right? We are like, oh, how can I create something like that? I mean, they have all their billboards, they have all their ambassadors, and but no, it started with a guy or with a group of people. And I think that is more possible now than ever because we have to let go of the old. And that's why I compare this time right now with the digital revolution. For me, this is the material revolution where we have to question everything what is physical, everything what is an ingredient, everything that we use to make things or that we use up. And it follows the same principles in a way as the digital revolution. You know, at the beginning, it's just a small little group and the innovators are being laughed at. Oh, you're growing something from a mushroom. Wow, that's interesting. How can that work? And suddenly, boom, it's a new industry. And that's the same what happened with digital. You know, and I think we are in a revolution right now. And I think that it's driven. I'm so sorry. That's the disadvantage of being at home. Doorbell.
Good ring.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah, it's an exciting moment in time, I feel. And it's an invitation to create. And that brings us to your topic, creative leaders, I feel. Wow, what an opportunity. Suddenly everything is up for redesign.
No, absolutely, including what Annemarie was also saying, to shift it around. What about products out there with labels that they're not sustainable? So, and Annemarie, I mean, what's your take on everything that Cyrill was saying, and how long do you feel it will take to have your vision or idea become a reality? How quickly can we convert or change the paradigm?
Absolutely. I think anything is possible right now, as Cyrill said. And I really liked what you were saying, that this moment, there's a lot of wind. There's that as much, I mean, humanity's just going through a crisis that nearly every single person on the earth is acutely feeling. I mean, when was the last time that happened, where everyone had the same, whether it's a job loss or a life lost, a friend lost, a family member, societies have been going through the same thing, and some of them have been very much shattered. And, while some parts of the world are picking up right now, the pieces, other parts are going into more lockdown. So even, this one thing that the Deputy Secretary General, Mina Mohammed, said that really has stuck with me is that every next step will be a better one if it can be taken with a deeper appreciation for our shared and lived experience. We have an incredible shared and lived experience right now that we have to let it use it to be the wind that will motivate us, that will get us over whatever fear of risk or whatever it is that is holding us back, to go and do the right thing and to do it in your own way, and to find others who are interested. And I love the other thing Cyrill said was, originally it was all about me and what I was going to be able to do, my ego, from start to finish. It was just my vision. And how do you buy into a bigger vision and still have it your own way and do it your own way? And I think you're doing that. You're just embodying that. And I think that's what this next generation of creatives has completely at their fingertips. They don't have a lot of that baggage, I don't think, anymore. I mean, this moment in time has given us a reset into what is it that is going to make us better? How do we want to work? We don't have to do anything we used to do if it's not helping us achieve what it is that we're looking for. And I think it's also opened a lot of our eyes into the inequalities. No matter if you're, however rich country you're from or wherever you are, there are communities who are being left behind. And I think people are realizing that no one was prepared and no one was ready for this crisis. And it's multiple crises. We have the social economic crisis, we have the climate crisis, we have the COVID crisis, and we have a lot of equity issues between vaccines and people who don't. We all have a role that we can play. And I think, again, it goes back to what Nadja, you've always been saying, is what is that intent? And how do you take that intent and let's take it to scale, and let's take it so it reaches people everywhere. And so I'm really excited because this is an industry, the creative industry is where all of these new ideas are going to come. Sometimes out of necessity, sometimes out of just the realization of what's needed. And I think a lot of the ideas are things that I, for one, have not even been able to think about, but I think there are people who are doing that. And it's up to all of us then to support that and create platforms. So at the UN, for example, I was really happy that Cyrill felt, comfortable enough to come into the UN and do something kind of different. And that's the lovely thing about the UN. You open a conference room door, and I did this right before the lockdown. I opened the door and I was actually in the wrong room. I opened it up and there's Yo-Yo Ma playing the cello. And I'm like, where am I? And, I opened the other one and it's a discussion on nuclear disarmament. So, I mean, that is what it is. It's one of the last places and the biggest places to bring people together. And we can all find those places, whether it's online, in person, we can bring people together. And the convening power of creativity is second to none. It is amazing what creative will bring. It's that energy that just sucks everyone right in. And then what you come out of it is even bigger than what you went in. And that's what I love about the idea of bringing different kinds of people together to work on issues that people really care about.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing.
Interesting piece, though, is that at the beginning, when I started Parley, I came with this very European mindset of oh, now we're talking environment. Now we have to be super pure, and everything has to be in the right way. And now we have to be, it's all nonsense, right? I mean, we just have to find a way of doing what we did in the past, just in a total different way. I mean, you want to create, we want to live, we want to have fun, we want to interact, and we want to expand our network. And it's just a question of like, how are we doing it? And how are we also changing old concepts, right? Economic models, really. Because to be frank, it's I don't want to point the finger towards the industry or economy, because honestly, I benefited of economy. I benefited, everything I did in my life was built on a capitalistic system, right? I got all the tools, all the opportunities, because somebody said, oh, you can create that for me. So I'm not questioning that. I'm just saying we need a new economy. We need, again, a new economy where, and I think there were moments like the International Chamber of Commerce back then was actually founded to make peace. And they thought if everybody's thriving economically, whoa, then we're going to have peace, right? It's unfair if only some people make money. And I think creativity and economy is something interesting because it's kind of connected and also kept separate. But if you dare as a creator to come up and say, you know what, I question this product model. I question this material. I don't see why it should be harmful and then later we give back and we try to reclaim it. Why would we not create it in the first place with the right materials and with the right business model? And I think business is an operating system, but it should not be the core of an entity. You know, it's like the core is always an idea. I want people to have the best access to food. I want them to perform better. I want to enable them to meet others. There is always an idea that drives. That's seen more as a brand story, but to be honest, that's the core of a business, you know. And then the rest of it is how you actually translate it. And it doesn't have to be toxic. It doesn't have to be exploitative. And probably it's beautiful that you pay your workers in Bangladesh a lot of money, and you can see that they're actually going to school and rebuilding their town, and they're speaking English and have a bank account. Probably it's beautiful that they make their shoes there for you that we sell in New York, and we can actually show them. Because right now, the supply chains on this planet, they are kept in the dark, right? Often, because nobody wants these illusions that are being created by a brand being compromised by the realities of how products are being made. And you find that paradox in a lot of areas of economy. And I think now where everything is connected and everybody wants to know, I think this time is over. I think it's a total new moment for brands and economy, and therefore also opportunities for the creative industries.
Mm-hmm. And how do you feel government's role plays in this? I mean, brands or companies is one. How do you think governments can help to really make sure every step of the ladder of the supply chain is in good hands or taken care of?
So 1 year ago, we announced our partnership with the World Bank, right? And we're doing a project together called Clean Rivers and Seas. And it's all about South Asia and how to end marine plastic pollution in South Asia. That was, for me, like a warp jump into government structures suddenly. Yeah. Before that, I had contacts through the UN. We have a partnership with the Maldives, and we signed also a partnership with the UNOHRLS department for small island development states in 2016.
What exactly does that stand for?
Yeah, some landlocked. Honestly, I could not say. Well, I'm happy that I can even actually recall the name.
Yeah. Amazing.
So, and what we said back then, we said the first we want to do is we want to start with small island development states, you know, because they are exposed to problems that they didn't often cause. You know, they didn't invent plastic. In some cases, it's even not that not even their own doing, right? The pollution is coming into the country. Poachers are coming into the country, into their waters, and they are not equipped to answer that. And also it's often very small, like it's structures that are not so difficult to change. And so with the Maldives, for example, we developed a very beautiful way of working. And the new laws that just came in place of like banning single-use plastic items, we worked together on them with them. So it's a very close relationship, and we gave them even the first membership status of Future Island Nation. We said, if you lower drastically your carbon footprint, if you with us together protect your waters against poaching, and if we together can end plastic, then we want to celebrate you, right? We want to celebrate you as a pilot. And that was a huge success. I mean, we suddenly we did a program where every school participated. We brought 86,000 kids in the water, and these kids, they were not allowed to swim during school before, so we had to change they had to change the laws. And when these kids jumped in the water with us and learned that there's life down there, and they saw these majestic beings, they couldn't believe it. I think it was the first time they understood why people would come from all over the world visiting their country also, and and then they went home to their parents and they told them. And so you would educate island by island through the kids. So they became the best teachers. And this year we did the same by starting a nationwide challenge of like getting the schools to clean up their beaches, clean up their islands, and everybody participated. It was enthusiastic, right? And even during pandemic times. And now how can we translate all this, communicating with the schools, with the kids, doing projects, building alliances. And in the Maldives, we have, I think, 300 individual partnerships. How can we translate that to India, to Sri Lanka, to Bangladesh? And that's the big challenge now for us. But I see a lot of willingness. And I think where 9 years ago, people didn't understand that these environmental issues are really big threats. And they couldn't imagine questioning materials like plastic. They couldn't imagine it back then. There was a lack of imagination of like, this is plastic, we use it, this will always be here. And suddenly there's a crack in that trust. And people feel like, probably we don't have to have that as a standard forever. Probably, oh, wow, probably we could invent something and probably we can do that. Probably I have a young scientist in Bangladesh who just found out how he can create or she can create a new material, right? And why would I not encourage them? And I think that brings us back to the creative power. I think in us humans is this endless power and energy and a superpower really to invent. And especially if there's a crisis situation. And I'm a creative, I'm a professional creative, and I grew up with deadlines, and I was known to always be either very close to the deadlines or step over the deadlines, right? And I needed that pressure. And to be honest, the perspective that this planet could be uninhabitable for us in the future is the ultimate deadline. It's the ultimate motivation for us to create. And I think it goes down to a very basic instinct that we have. And this is we want to live. We are humans, we are creatures, we want to survive. And I think in this moment, even before we had this mutual event of the pandemic, which showed us that there is a threat, a real threat, very, very personal, we already all felt that instinct-wise, there is something going on. We have the feeling that we can't really trust us anymore. The future is not looking too well. And that was a mutual, I think, experience that we all had and still have. And the pandemic turbocharged that. I think now we know. On an emotional level, now we know. Our survival is at stake. We are not safe. And I think that is that's the best precondition for an explosion of new ideas, new technologies, new models. And I think we're going to see that now happening.
And Cyrill, I found the name of it because it's a very difficult name. Even I had to remember the order. It's the United Nations Office of the High Representative for the Least Developed Countries, Landlocked Developing Countries, and Small Island Developing States. And it is exactly
amazing.
That is exactly what you're talking about. It's that co-creation with countries who are right now have the least responsibility in terms of our global carbon emissions, but are feeling it the most. There are countries and islands that could disappear in a matter of, we're not talking centuries, we're talking decades. And that deadline is very much upon us. So I like that you like working against a deadline, because I think we're all under that deadline. And it isn't something to be feared, but more as a motivator, I think. I think it is something that will keep us going.
And I think what you're touching on is fear. I agree with you 100%. Fear is not a good motivation right now. Fear is paralyzing. Fear is like making you a hater. I mean, it's not helping you to open up. It's not helping you to see opportunities, it's not creating a beautiful idea. And I think I understand why there is fear. There is anxiety, it's scary. It seems overwhelming. What can I do as an individual to change these big things? But the truth is, someone invented these problems. Somebody created plastic. Somebody created the plastic bag. Somebody started to actually power a car with fossil fuel. Often it was a person or a handful of people. So of course, it can also be an individual finding another technology that is solving that problem. And sometimes it's just an idea that you express. It's this one thing you say. It doesn't have to be that you are this rocket scientist, this like overwhelmingly intelligent super brain. It's not the point. It's like, it can be a simple idea that you just drop at a lunch and somebody picks it up and adds to it. It's a jam. And I feel that we are in this moment where we have to encourage to see the positive outcome, to have a vision and to say, you know what, probably we can invent our way out of this. And most likely we can, because we're not stupid enough to kill ourselves. And the future should be a beautiful future. It's a blue future. We're living in the most amazing planet that we know so far. And I mean, there are other cool ones, but it's very hard to live there. And so why would we not just paint a perfect, beautiful outcome and say, this is what we're going to go for? It's a vision. It's a vision of collaboration, creativity. And I'm going to have a place. I'm not giving up my ego. I'm just part of something new. I'm part of a new generation of thinkers. And it's not age related. It's really more mindset related. I'm approaching this with optimism. And I believe that we have the power to change the world because our ideas do. And I think that is what keeps us motivated every day. It's like, and it's hard, because we are exposed to organizations that often, I mean, we work with monsters, right? We're trying to change companies like Adidas, Anheuser-Busch, American Express, World Bank. And I mean, sometimes you feel like, oh my God, what am I doing? I mean, I should probably just paint a picture if I want self-satisfaction in a creative sense. But A, I can't paint, and B, it's really fulfilling after a certain time when you see that people are picking it up, but in their own way. And it's never looking as you planned it to be. I mean, if you work with these monsters, right? But at some moment, others are encouraged to do the same. And suddenly there is a new idea, a new mindset that is spreading. And I think that's magical, to be honest. When you see, and you don't see that after a year. I mean, we are starting to see it now after 9 years, that things are changing. And lots of others had the same approach, same intention. And we often didn't even speak to each other, but we encouraged each other. And there is something very beautiful that is happening. And I think we can definitely turn things around, but we need now a next generation to start where we are leaving it off, because at some point you can only bend your mind so far, right? And you have to see that the next generation is coming rapidly into the position of taking lead, and we have to empower them, and we have to help them to find their role in that and give them all support that we can, because to be honest, in 10 years from now, I'm gonna probably not be of big use anymore, and then you have to hand over to the total next, and this has to start today.
And that's why, Nadja, what you're doing is so, so important. It's bringing people together, giving them ideas, giving them access to information, data, to creative networks, to figuring out the next step, to encouragement, to critical thinking. And I'm really excited by what this cohort is going to do, because, it just takes, if you think, here are 9 more Cyrills, here are 9 more amazing young, brilliant minds, and millions of young, brilliant minds that are, the more that they hear and understand what is available and find pathways to it, I think the better we can network. It's kind of like this layering of networks. The more we connect everyone, the more people will find the way that's going to make the most sense for them.
No, absolutely. I mean, we're so excited, and that you are a partner in this entire platform. I mean, this totally speaks to what you're saying, Cyrill. We're trying to change the paradigm. And then also, I mean, it was very strategic to expose those students to somebody like you. I mean, when can they have access to you? You know what I mean? I mean, this is amazing. So can I please
You're going to drag them into the engine room.
I want to be your student. I'm going to be part of every single masterclass. I want to learn, you know. No, but that is, you will be such a huge inspiration to all these children. And then I have to say, it's so exciting also to see that we have people from the different industries represented, because that's a question for both of you. You know, how do you feel that different industries are responding? How's architecture and design responding versus the fashion industry versus the creative industry, the jewelry industry, the building industry, and so on? And ultimately, how can they inspire each other, or can they inspire each other?
I think people naturally find each other, and our job is to help them find them each other quicker. And I think the more we can connect ideas, because we're seeing this being replicated in all these different industries, and you have to kind of almost ask industries to work with each other for a greater good. And it can be a little competitive in a good way, which is really fantastic. For example, the advertising industry. They, you know, in the past we would say, hey, we want to work with you, and it would be some pro bono work here or something there. And what we said instead is, hey, what are you doing within your industry yourself to get to net zero, for example, net carbon? What are you doing? And then once you're walking the talk, what are you asking your clients to do? And how is the work that you're doing with your clients going to help us get to these sustainable development goals? And, you know, that idea might have been seeded from all these different conversations, but it kind of had to come from the industry. It couldn't come from me, the UN, saying, oh, you should do this. Right. It came from the realization that people were potentially losing jobs and opportunities because they themselves, their own portfolio and the own way that they were working was not going to be able to get those jobs that required, you know, for example, let's say broadcasting for one of these big sessions on climate. If you yourself are not a company that is thinking about climate, that is really on the path to net zero, that is thinking about sustainable development, then how can you be bidding on something that is all about that? And so I think people are just self-enlightenment in many ways. And so if we can kind of connect the dots, connect people faster, I think we're going to get to those goals faster.
Yeah, and from our side, it's like it's interesting because being a designer helps me. And the way I was looking at my own role as a designer, I always saw myself as a collaboration manager. I always saw that if I want to create or I want to help a company to elevate their design and come up with a new way of doing things, I have to understand everything. And which is crazy. Of course, I will not really understand it. It's more like a generalist approach, but I have to be able to speak to the specialist. I have to kind of develop this universal language, you know, and that was always my mindset. I had to go into the printing house. I wanted to see how a car was assembled and actually where the material, I wanted to always to know that before I couldn't even speak about it. I couldn't even like understand it, you know, and I think now when we work with corporations and we're picking in every industry, we're picking a potential eco-innovation leaders, right? And it started with Adidas at the beginning, where we said, we actually negotiated for 2 years because we just wanted to work with them and they didn't at the beginning. And after 2 years, we had a contract. And actually a 2 times 5 year contract, like a long contract. And we knew that if we turn Adidas around, we're gonna hit sports, we're gonna hit youth, and we're gonna hit fashion. And if you're introducing a new material, people will quickly find it sexy. They will believe that it's actually performing better. That means you're washing away all these doubts and you're connecting with all the other industries. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're trying to do now in every category. Like the Maldives was I would say, Adidas in SITS. You know, American Express was the key that we needed to go into finance, and so on and so on. That's how we're operating. And in every industry, in order to really provoke them to change and inspire them also and find ways that they get rewarded for the risk they're taking and the courage they have, mm-hmm. You need to first understand. You need to understand their supply chain, you need to understand their mentality, you need to understand their pain points, and you need to understand their potential. Mm-hmm. And only if you do that, they're actually listening to you, mm-hmm. right? And So you have to kind of, we're not consultants, but we need to understand to a certain level what they need and what they can't do. And to be honest, the deeper you dive, the quicker you realize that they can do everything if they want to. You know, and there is no reason not to change a company besides that somebody is worried that it could fall negatively back on them if they're taking the risk to question what they have done for the last 10 years. That's the only risk they have. In often cases, we were even saving them money, to be honest. It was, yes, investment on one side, but on the other side, they saved a lot because they suddenly went down deep into their own organization, into the engine room, connecting aspects that they never saw connected, and also reclaiming control over their supply chain, which they outsourced for a long time. So there is something of like, if you really want to change your company, your industry, your country even, you first have to understand what you're actually doing. And then you have to kind of more or less take the screwdriver and start adjusting. And then you can say, oh, you know what? There we are actually wasting energy. There we're using chemicals that we shouldn't use. Oh, why are we actually still making that product? Why would we not stitch it together instead of gluing together? And then we can shred it. And we can use, and oh, why would we not only use one material type instead of 20 in a product? Oh, and why are we actually using plastic? You know, and so it's once you trigger people on this, like, and you expose them to this idea of like impossible is nothing really. That's why I love the claim of these of our partners there. Once you trigger that idea of like, you know what, it's actually sexy, it's cool to question the impossible. There's no stopping. And if you turn that into a competitive context, which collaboration is beautiful and people signing together papers are also beautiful, but to be very honest, it's not the motivation people are doing something. I learned that in the last 9 years. They want to be the best. And now they want to be the best eco-innovation brand. That's great. No, you save the world faster than the other guys. That's perfect. So everybody else has to run after you.
That's one area where competition is really fantastic. You know, it does make the world go round, but actually with collaboration, teamed up, you can do it even faster.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, to be very honest, nobody can do anything alone here because we are talking about inventing new materials, for example. Replacing plastic means billions and billions and billions of dollars and decades of development into that material. How can we replace that in 5 to 10 years? Only through collaboration. So they are forced to collaborate. But then there are ways that you collaborate cross-category that say, oh, I'm collaborating with people that are not a danger to me. You know, so, and you know what, with my competitor, I'm going to collaborate and we're going to do something together, but the real technology I'm going to do with somebody totally else. You know, I think it's just a mix of everything. But yes, collaboration, the idea of collaboration and the culture of collaboration within an organization and between organizations is honestly mandatory. I mean, you have no right to be anymore if you're not collaborating.
Industries and different entities. Yeah, I can imagine.
And also, to be honest, it was for a long time. I mean, back in the days, science, art, all that was like very close to each other. Now we separated all these, and that's not really helping, you know. And when you're looking towards NASA or organizations like that, they start their mission planning with an art project, more or less. They're painting out the mission. They're like, it's a creative approach, you know. And then the scientists feel inspired. Oh, this could. Oh, okay. And I think this exchange between artists, designers, engineers, and scientists and innovators, this exchange, this like. That's the real power, and that's how you win time. And I think that's what we have to encourage. And a designer today is not just somebody who makes something beautiful. You know, you can be anything. That's the beauty if you're a designer or even an artist. To be honest, you're in a cool position.
Well, we're trying to create that mini kind of think tank with our creatives of the future. But you guys, time is nearly up. I just have one last. I mean, I could just listen to both of you forever. It's just so fascinating. No, but can you, both of you, just give some examples of what each individual can do to speed up the world reaching the goals in the next 10 years? What does that mean for individuals, and how can they educate themselves? How can they know about what the goals are, and how can they know about what they can do and how they can contribute individually?
Maybe I'll just start with going back to intent. that's just the first step, is to say, you know, whatever I'm going to do it with some intention that it's going to be helpful to people and it's going to be helpful to the planet. And that's a great way to start. So maybe it's your, so you have to have some passion into this. So maybe it's really around gender equality, or maybe it's around oceans or life. We call it life underwater, life below water. And or maybe it's around production and systems. I think find the issue that you're deeply connected to, and then who knows, that may be the issue that that gets you in the door. And once you start to find other things, you may find another passion in you, or you may be able to start to combine passions. I think you have to be open to it, but start with something you think you like right now. Mm-hmm. And I also think you can think super big and you can also think super small. I mean, I just recently learned about plastic hangers. Plastic hangers are like the plastic straws of our closets. More than 85 billion plastic hangers are thrown away each year. Who knew? And that's just, I mean, it's a small item that almost every household has somewhere. And there are companies, and there's someone who thought about it and said, okay, let's make sure that the hangers that we create are made from ocean soup, a mixture of plastic and various waste found in the sea. So it can be anything. I mean, it can be the plastic hanger. It could be to get rid of single-use plastic straws and coming up with something completely different. So whatever it is that you see in your life that you think is interesting, that's a great place to start. And to Cyrill's point, and maybe I'll just finish with a really beautiful quote that really drives me from Nelson Mandela, that it's always impossible until it's done. And I think that's sometimes how we feel in the UN. And yet, look, we have these 17 goals that all the world leaders agreed to. So wherever you are in the world, these goals have been agreed to. They are the world's goals. They're not the UN goals. They're your goals. They're my goals. They're everyone's goals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, that's great. You said pretty much everything. I want to add only two things. On one side, I feel taking inventory of what your footprint is, and looking at what you're actually doing, and awareness is this big word, but the truth is, what does it mean for you? You know, like there's something beautiful in like observing yourself first, because you are in the same position as billions of other people, and when you are opening a bottle, then it means that in this moment, millions of other people are also opening a bottle. So you're representing pretty much everybody on some levels, right? Of course, there are different circumstances. That means like, what are my challenges? What is my footprint? What's my impact, my positive and my negative impact? What am I leaving behind? And the moment I start questioning that, and I start looking at a bottle I'm buying, or do I really need to buy a single-use? Do I know where it's coming from? Do I know the impact? In that moment, you are actually priming the canvas for a potential next step that you can take, but you don't have to. I think it's great enough if you're just aware of your own footprint and you know what, in this moment, I don't need to spend or waste or do something. I don't have to use that single use disposable item. I don't have to leave the light on. These are all the things, and you can pick your battles. You shouldn't try to do everything right. I would say pick some battles and start with them. Mm-hmm. And then the more and deeper you go into that, it will inspire you. You will have ideas. Mm-hmm. And you will see, it's not even a refill cup that fits my needs, or why would I not find water at this exact moment? And you suddenly see that lots of things are missing. And you can say, on one side, you can look at it from a negative standpoint and say, nobody helps me to live a very good life. I'm forced to have a negative footprint. Or you can say, that's an invitation for me to create. This is missing. Probably there is somebody out there already creating it, and I can check out what they're doing, or I can invent it myself. Mm-hmm. And I think not to accept the realities that are being presented to us as a standard, but to question them and to understand that we are the architects of reality. Yeah. That everything that surrounds us, what creates these problems, is man-made. Mm-hmm. The natural world didn't produce these problems. We're living in a man-made world or women-made world. We're living in a world that is designed by us. So of course I can redesign it. Mm-hmm. And the beautiful thing is that these days, when you design it for yourself and you prototype it, you make it up, you can share that with the world and other people will help you bringing it to life, or they will copy you, and it's also good because these ideas need to get out. And I think there is no limitation anymore for us to be a creator. We can contribute, and at the beginning, probably you have 3 ideas and 2 of them are really bad. And this one is like being copied by your neighbor and you're not getting anything for it. But you know what? You learned that your ideas have a value and you keep doing that. And probably idea number 100, you're going to live from that for your whole life. And the next family, your family will live from it. And then you create a dynasty, build on an idea. Or you will never do that and you just help others. And it's fine. I think creating is beautiful. And we don't always have to own it.
Mm-hmm. Great. It always makes a contribution, whatever.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great. Okay, well, what an inspiration. So I look forward to reading your book whenever you're going to be writing it. And we'll get you on, yes, we'll have further conversations as our program progresses. But thank you so much for your contribution.
Thank you, Nadja.
Thank you, Annemarie, for all of this. And thank you for your time now. I mean, it's been so hard to get the 2 of you together. I'm so honored that you are here, because you are so incredibly busy. So it really means so much to us. And thank you so much for sharing and for your wonderful work and contribution to make this world a better place. So it's such an honor to be partnering with you. And I look forward to seeing you in real life soon, I hope. But all the best in the meantime.
Right back at you, Nadja. Thank you for everything you do. And
Thank
you are
you, Nadja.
definitely a bright star out there.
Great. Well, you are amazing. Really super. Both of you, such role models. Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. See you soon. Lots of love. Bye.